The opinions voiced in this podcast are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which strategies or investments may be suitable for you, consult the appropriate qualified professional prior to making a decision. Today's guest and their company are not affiliated with or endorsed by LPL Financial. So for the few people that don't really know you here in town, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, sure. Well, my name is Keeley Gaddis, and I went to Hardin-Simmons, so I graduated from there. I played softball there, so it brought me to Abilene. I am from Eastland, so I grew up there my whole life. My family still lives there, and my husband Tyler and I have lived here since 2013. So we have 2 kids.
Nice.
Tucker, he's 3, and Madeline, she's 6, and so they're keeping us busy. And so, yeah, I've been in public accounting and worked in the corporate world, and now doing my own thing and starting my own business. So
Awesome. What's the name of your business?
it's called KG Accounting Outsourcing.
Okay, perfect.
So, yeah.
All right, so what was your path kind of into accounting and that's leading you to this?
Yeah, so I started out as an auditor right out of school, and I really enjoyed that just because I was able to go out to clients' offices and sit with them and really get in the weeds and learn the ins and outs of their business. Got to have real conversations with business owners and, just was in hundreds of different rooms and businesses. And so that was something that really was enjoyable for me in my personality. I'm an extrovert, which you usually don't align with the CPA profession,
Right.
but I enjoy the people part of that, and so then I jumped into more leadership roles and was able to transition to kind of more of the management side of things, and so I've been the controller and I've been the CFO for a corporation, an engineering firm, and so I've just been exposed to a lot of different industries and different types of accounting and different operational needs for businesses.
So what was kind of your moment when you decided, you know what, I think I'm done working for other people doing this and I kind of want to go out on my own with this?
Yeah, I have always had an owner mindset, almost to a fault. And so, when you're young and you're just starting out, you're just absorbing everything. And then I started getting into these roles where I was really starting to take ownership of what I was doing, and just caring a lot about the outcomes of what I was doing and not just the daily task. And so that just became a little bit more hard for me to not fully be owner and take full responsibility for something that I cared so much about. And for me, I believe strongly that empowering your people and your employees to have an ownership mindset is how you're successful and how your business thrives. And so I really wanted to just create something on my own where I could bring my own values and my beliefs to the table and build that for myself so I could provide that for other people as well.
Yeah, very nice. So it's not super uncommon for an employee to be like, I would do this differently. I would treat my people differently. But it takes people like you that do kind of that extra step where you actually go out and do it for yourself. And just, I don't know, I just always love to kind of pick the brains of people like that and just be like, hey, what kind of was that change?
Yeah.
So what made you think about making that fractional CFO kind of model work versus when businesses typically think of accounting, they think of their books, they usually think of an in-house person. Why do you think a business wants to have what you're offering?
Yeah, so the fractional CFO service is definitely something that I provide, and that is something that I enjoy doing, and it's a big need for businesses because they they're able to have that financial oversight and strategy and, receive KPIs and receive these different metrics that they wouldn't otherwise be able to have. But they're not having to pay the full overhead of having somebody in-house working full-time 40 hours a week, which isn't always necessary. And I discovered that, throughout my career as well. And so that's why that model, and that's why I have found it successful and been able to actually relate to business owners, because it really is. It's the CFO level service without the overhead, and that's what is kind of selling that, and what is attracting clients. But in addition to that, that's not necessarily the only service that I provide. And so I also provide services for operational items, which, a lot of small businesses, that goes hand in hand. And from my viewpoint and from my perspective, I truly think that a successful business is more about the day-to-day operational decisions and processes and procedures and the employees, and how you treat your staff, more so than just the bottom line. And so that's where I'm trying to incorporate that outsourcing piece of it. Like, yes, I am a CPA, but let's look at the big picture, and how is this impacting your people, and how is this impacting morale and everything, like the big picture of how it's impacting the overall business. Because most businesses don't, they don't equate like the cost of turnover, and they don't think of those things, and especially small businesses. And so I think it's some of those items that you can't necessarily quantify that bring so much value to a business and make you successful.
Yeah. Yeah, the more that I work with clients, the more that I work with business owners, it feels like more of them really are looking for that advisory section, that other person who can kind of help them in those areas.
Yeah.
And that's what they think that they're paying for when they either they get their bookkeeper that's in-house, or they get their person who's doing numbers. It's like there's a coaching aspect of it,
Sure.
and there's I don't know, a partnership. So do you think of the way that you offer services for business in different sizes almost like a funnel? Like, it's very much of like, hey, it's a smaller business, they need just these services right now. As they grow, they'll become and kind of grow into that role where they do need more of a CFO that they aren't ready for hiring talent of yet, or things like that.
No, absolutely. And I think that that's why, I made the comment that not everybody even needs a fractional CFO immediately, but people see themselves needing a bookkeeper. They need help. They know they have to have, their financials in place so they can file their tax return. And that's what most businesses care about, right? Is we have to file our tax return. We need organized financials. Let's hire a bookkeeper. And the difference is, bookkeepers are primarily coding transactions. And most people have staff in place that can do that sort of thing. They don't always have the training that they need, and it's hard to know where to seek that training out. And so something that we do, especially for these smaller businesses, maybe not even small, but just startups, or just business owners just trying to navigate new things, is going in and identifying, maybe it's a receptionist, maybe it's an administrative staff, or maybe you have a bookkeeper that isn't fully utilizing all the functions of the softwares that you're paying for, or they could have a software that they could better utilize and make things more efficient. And so that's something that I like really enjoy doing for some of those types of businesses, is going in and training people and figuring out who's the right person in-house for this job, because bookkeepers, a lot of time, they're doing back office work, right? They're paying bills, they're making deposits, and usually businesses have somebody on staff that are capable of doing that. And then as you grow and need some more, so that's more of like a training aspect of it. And then as you grow and need some more, want to scale and want some more metrics and provide clarity, then you can kind of build that on to to the service that we've already provided. And sometimes that's a one-time, like a one-time service,
Sure.
right? It's a cleanup, it's a training, and that all goes back to empowering businesses' staff to be able to do the tasks that they are capable of doing. So just kind of providing some direction for them.
That's awesome. So how long ago did you start your enterprise that you're doing?
About 8 months ago.
How's it been going?
It's been good. Yeah. Ask me tomorrow. I might have a different answer. It depends what day it is. I mean, it has, I wanted to do this for the challenge, right? Like I thrive off of being challenged. And it has proven to be that. Like it's always like, oh man, now I need to do this. Now I need to do that. And it just kind of snowballs. But it's been good. One of my mentors and friends, she's also an entrepreneur in town, and she asked me how I'm doing, and I'm like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm stressed, and she's like, I would be worried about you if you weren't, And so I think about that often of like if I'm worried about it, and in a healthy way, I'm not, but if I'm worried about it, then that means that that's where I want to be.
Well, your worry it's a feature.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very much of like, hey, it's just showing, hey, this is where my focus is right now.
Well, it's just like I care about it.
Yeah, you're never going to be balanced in those early, even the first few years. I mean, it's going to be a long time. You have to be, hey, this is where 70% of my energy is going. This is, I mean, and if it's not, it's not going to be doing anything.
Sure.
I've yet to meet a single person who's like, oh yeah, I'm about 2 years in, and life's good. I'm just on vacations constantly. The business is running itself. I mean, it's just non-existent.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a different worry, a different stress, but it feels purposeful and it feels valuable, and so it has been a really good transition for me and my personality and just what I'm trying to build, but it is definitely different than working for other people, right? It's you, and I love that I'm able to kind of experience the growth process of starting my own business and building my own business alongside some of my clients, right? Because some of them are startups too, and although I've had going on 13 years of experience in this world, it's different when you're building it yourself. And so I'm able to put myself in their shoes in real time with them, and that's been really cool. So
did you have some early wins that kind of helped you with some of those early nervous kind of sessions where you're like, hey, you know what, I think we are going to make it, like I think it is going to be good? Did you have any of those kind of moments yet?
Yeah, a lot of like little wins, right? They add up, and that's what keeps you motivated and keeps you moving. I would say that my one of my biggest wins, and something that I just really made me think, okay, like I am providing value, and that feels good. Like you want to make an impact on the people that you're working with, and find a purpose, right? And that's like the whole challenge of a career is balancing purpose with freedom, and making sure that you're making an impact in other people's lives. And so just hearing clients say like, oh, like that makes sense, or I've never thought about it that way, or like we should do XYZ, like please do that, like I trust you to do that, like this, and just building that trust and hearing them say like they are confident in me making those decisions, with them and for them, and that's just been really encouraging. So
awesome. Have any of the early successes kind of shown you some of where like the value that you're really providing is?
That's a little bit harder of an answer just because I think that every single one of my clients, they view value differently.
Sure.
right? And so in my mind, I could walk in there thinking that, I'm going to provide these metrics and I'm going to provide this financial statement. It's going to be beautiful. It's going to be organized and you're going to love it as much as I do. And it's, it's color coded and it's going to be great. Yeah. And, that's not really where they find value. And so just trying to identify everybody's different personalities and the questions they're going to ask, and kind of be one step ahead of them, so that when I do go to those leadership meetings and I'm presenting financials, I can answer those questions before they come up. And so I think that that's where is starting to kind of fall into place, like the more that I'm around like these clients and the more I'm exposed to the actual needs of businesses. Even though they're all unique, there is kind of an underlying need, and so just being able to kind of predict those needs, and that feels successful, in my mind, as far as like, okay, like this is providing value, and I am able to provide this without a ton of back and forth, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I do the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Where I have an assumption of when I'm prepping for a meeting, when I'm prepping for going over numbers with a client, they're coming in. I'm like, okay, they're going to be really excited about this or that. Yeah. They're going to be this is going to be a great moment. Yeah. And it's something completely off the wall is like what they actually really care about. It's like, okay, I don't know, I've had to get better at listening to my clients that way and do what you're already doing really well, of just like really trying to, I'm going to anticipate their needs. I'm going to really know what they're looking for, and know some of that's been good, but it's always very interesting. It's like, okay, I think I'm doing something, and then someone walks in like, oh no, this is what we actually really need you for.
Well, and then just being willing to adapt, right? Yeah. Like if you're there and it's like, oh, well, that's not really what we expected. It's like, okay, well, let me, I'll be back. Like let's figure this out together. And I think that has been something that I've always really wanted, is those relationships and be able to collaborate, and not just sit at the table, right, with people, but to actually collaborate and have these conversations of like, hey, we'll figure it out together. And so that's given me the opportunity to do that, and that's how you build trust. So it's been a really neat experience being able to just like show up to these meetings and present, and then have real conversations about their real numbers and their business and their operations. So
yeah, that's awesome. So for someone who doesn't really understand what that fractional CFO service looks like, I know that's obviously one of your services.
Yeah.
But that's typically kind of where I think early on you were really trying to highlight
that
strength of what you're offering, especially to our market. What does that look like? What are you actually doing for those clients that do get to that level?
Yeah, so the level of the clients that are at that level are, they typically have somebody in-house that are doing the transactions, coding everything, reconciling. They're doing the day-to-day operations. And if they don't have that, once they're trained up, then we are reviewing all their financials. We're showing up. I either Zoom with people who are not in Texas, and I'll talk to them that way, learn more about them, or I show up to their office and I get integrated with their staff, and I learn about what they're doing, and then I'm able to make suggestions, not only financial. It really is looking at their income statement and looking at their revenue and looking at margins and providing KPIs to them, right? Which is, to them, it sometimes is foreign, right? So just sitting down and talking through that with them and explaining to them something as simple as like, hey, your revenue does not equal your profit, right? And that's okay. That's what they need to understand. And so as long as these owners are willing to have conversations and be coached and be like, hey, this is how this is working, and this is some issues that you have. Maybe you're overstaffed, like your payroll cost is way too up, you're way too high, you're having inefficiencies here, and just kind of identifying those items on a monthly, quarterly basis and having meetings and just discussing ways that they can improve their bottom line as well as just strategize, you know, about day-to-day operations in the meantime because it all goes hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so just trying to provide that space to have those conversations. So it always starts with like, well, here's some fun numbers and dashboards and KPIs, but then it turns into more of like, well, how do we realistically make this better, or how do we realistically hire this person, or, you know, maybe I need to change my commission structure, or, you know, we're involved with payroll with a lot of the clients. And so just talking with them about efficiently onboarding and offboarding their employees, and some more of that like compliance and HR stuff kind of all comes in there. And so whereas I know that's not necessarily like your finance side of things and not what people think, that's what we're trying to create. Is yes, it starts with the numbers, and people care about the numbers because you can quantify it and see it. And but what does that actually mean? And I think that goes back to me saying of like, I really don't think that revenue is the full deciding factor of whether a business is successful, right?
Yeah.
And so just trying to teach them that and have those real conversations.
Yeah. How would you view that differently than maybe the business owner who kind of, you know, they have their in-house person, they have their in-house person who's doing all the numbers, bookkeeping, things like that, and then they're going to their outside CPA who's doing taxes for the business. How would you kind of view those different things? They're, in my mind, those are two very completely different things.
Yeah.
But to the average business owner, they think it's the same.
Yeah.
So can you kind of tell me, walk
me
through about what are some different expectations and what are some different things that you might highlight between the two experiences?
Yeah. So, you know, your tax CPA, they're filing your return every year. And a lot of people have great relationships with their tax accountants, and they talk to them throughout the year, and, you know, they're helping them out. This is more of a hands-on approach where you're getting real-time advice and real-time consulting when you need it throughout the year. You're not waiting until the end of the year. It's kind of, I was talking to a friend, and we're talking about, you know, the whole point of it is to help them make decisions throughout the year so that they're setting themselves up for tax season. But you've got to be able to like have these cash projections and forecasts, and it's more of the operational, like day-to-day financial task rather than filing a tax return.
I think there is a really big gray area market where people go into their CPA office at the end of the year. They're business owners, they kind of go over, they hand them everything, and they expect them to sit there and do full advisory services like what you're offering.
Right.
And when they don't hear any advice in those, I think a lot of times it kind of sours that relationship.
Yeah,
so
it frustrates them, but that's not necessarily what is
that's
not their role,
that's
and that's
their
not the
role,
scope of the engagement that they have with them.
Right.
And so it does. Yeah, I think that's a really good point of, you know, it sours that because the expectation is there that they're going to provide more of these services. That is not what they do. And so
it's not quite as bad as an example of like, hey, I went to a really nice Italian restaurant, but I really hated the hamburger. I mean, it's very much of like, hey, you go to one place for a very specific experience and a very specific skill set and what they're there to provide. And there's a lot of CPAs who are very good at that business side.
Yeah.
And who love to talk about that and that it's something different. Those are fewer and far between. And really what people are looking for is someone like you. They're looking for someone who can actually kind of, I don't want to say hold their hand, but can work with them along the way, that can really build something for them.
Yeah, and I think just educate them, right? Because I think that that's the most important part is like build that relationship with them where they can call and they can ask questions and they feel comfortable doing that. So that way they feel more empowered to, you know, take control of it and have clarity in their numbers and make decisions. Because a lot of times if you're just waiting till the end of the year for your tax return, you haven't thought about your financials at all, or you're looking at your revenue, but that doesn't tell the whole story. And so just being able to see that in real time, which has been really valuable for some of my bigger clients, is they've just been delayed, right, in getting their financial statements from previous accountants. And so just trying to automate a ton of that where they can get those numbers, within 2 weeks of the month closing. And that is like one that requires a ton of journal entries and, getting out like a lot of allocations. But most of these businesses, they can see their numbers in real time every day. And that is part of what I'm trying to do, is to automate their day-to-day processes where they can do that. And then when it comes to tax season, you hand it to the tax accountant on a platter and say, hey, this is ready for you, right? Make some book tax adjustments, and let's file the return. And that's what we're trying to do, is make it easy and provide confidence for the business owners.
Awesome. So kind of getting into things that business owners might be on the lookout for, what might be a red flag that you're typically looking for the first time you're starting to work with a business, or you're looking at their P&Ls? What's something that sticks out to you?
Honestly, what sticks out to me is the organization of their chart of accounts.
Okay.
That's a simple answer, but like first glance at somebody's financials, that's what catches attention, and that it tells me how organized they are and how much they actually are involved in their financials, and the transaction coding. So one of the main things I do is go in there and clean it up and simplify some of these accounts, just so that it provides less room for error, and things are coded more consistently. Because if you have, 10 different accounts that say utilities, internet, utilities, telephone, and there's this purpose for that at some point. But most business owners just truly need to simplify their chart of accounts and be able to make them readable, where they can look at them and they can compare these numbers year over year and see real results from that. And so the organization of it, just whether it's simple or complex, and some need to be very complex, multiple cost centers and lots of detail and accounts. And I think it just comes down to the organization of it and the structure of their chart of accounts. So I see that first, because I'm a little OCD and type A, so I like to make sure that it's organized. And then
Well,
as
I would
far
imagine
as
if there's a lot of like mixing up and a lot of
Yes.
disorganization, there's definitely things getting missed.
Absolutely. And it just makes it. That's just, once it's cleaned up, then you can actually look at real numbers, right? Because until it's cleaned up and it is organized, then the numbers don't really tell the story. And so I think that people think that they have a good set of books, and that well, we're entering all this, and we're reconciled, and it's like, yeah, but it's not organized, and it's not you're not able to see the real story of where your expenses are going, and if you're actually making money, and are your profit margins in line with your industry. And so it's just I would say that initially, and then just getting into the weeds as far as like a healthy profit margin and gross margin, and mostly if they're like selling things, and have inventory and the cost of sales, just trying to look at that of like, are you really making money? Like,
Right.
do you have $1 million in revenue but you don't ever have any cash? And so kind of looking at the big picture of, business owners love to look at revenue, right? It's exciting and it's fun, but it just doesn't necessarily tell the story. And so looking at the income statement, the P&L, together with the balance sheet, and seeing those and how they flow together.
Awesome. What would be something that's possibly, like you're saying, you have a client who it seems like they're making a lot of money on paper, they don't have a lot of cash flow.
Yeah.
What do you think is something that might be eating into that for them that they're not realizing before they, come see you?
Yeah. Sure. Debt. A lot of times. Committing to expenses that they don't necessarily have the money for. They think they do because they are, have a high revenue, but at the end of the day, they're having to pay off loans. I would say that's probably the main one. And not that they can't take that debt on, but it's more of just like knowing if you're going to have the cash to pay it off when that payment comes due. And that's why it's important to have, projections and cash flow and forecasts and budgets. And I don't think that a lot of that's in place for most businesses. And so when they do have that in place, then it's a little bit easier to manage their cash flow.
Kind of on that kind of projections, kind of goal setting, how much should businesses be basing their past performance, what they've been up into this point? How much that should key into their goals and projections for this next year? Or what do you usually kind of help them create grounded, realistic goals for how they're going to perform and what they're going to be hopefully taking on in the near future?
Sure, yeah, I would definitely say it's not a one size fits all situation. I think that that's where you really have to take a deep dive into the individual company and really spend time looking at what's driving their revenue, they're driving their cost. And so, yeah, it's important to look backwards, right? But not for very long, especially businesses that are looking to scale and grow, or maybe just stay where they're at. But you have to look more into the future of, what does this year look like for us? Like, how many people do we plan to hire? And look at these real costs that are driving your numbers. So yeah, look back, but not for long. Project, within the next year, 12-month projections, if possible. And that way you can actually see what you really expect to bring in. A lot of people that are like strapped for cash, I'll tell them, like, sit down, do a 90-day cash forecast. Look at what you really expect to come in, your contracts that you have, when you expect to receive it, just for 3 months. Add your expenses that you're going to have, and then go from there. And that really is eye-opening for people, because it's hard for them to actually look at that and say, oh my goodness, like I'm really overspending, or we have some really inefficient labor costs here, and like we don't need all of these costs. And payroll is is typically the highest cost of a business. And so just finding efficiencies and being able to streamline processes internally a lot of times saves people a lot of money, and not cutting employees or staffing necessarily, but finding jobs that will be productive and beneficial to the business, instead of having a lot of downtime in their employees' day.